Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome for real this time. Thank you very much. Let me introduce today's session. So today is AI for Business, and it's brought to you by ScoreApp. ScoreApp is our marketing software business that does lead generation. We create online scorecards and quizzes that allow you to generate really good quality leads that you can engage with and who want to engage with you. And we've been building AI into ScoreApp. In fact, we're really pleased that Professor Andy Pardoe has joined our team as our head of AI. And I'll tell you about Andy in a minute. But we see AI as a little bit like electricity, that electricity plugs into devices and it powers them, right? And what we're doing at the moment is powering our platform with AI. And today you're going to see a demo at the end of today, which really is going to blow your mind. You're going to see something that would normally take about 30 hours for a human to do, and it's going to happen in a matter of minutes. And it's going to be a complete first. When you see this, I think you're going to go, wow. I think Paul Dunn is going to go, wow, because Paul loves saying that when he sees something that's impressive. For those of you who have been following along the AI story, I think the AI story began for most of us in December. There was a moon landing moment on the 31st of November where something big happened, and a company called OpenAI came along and it released something called ChatGPT. And we all sort of jumped on and we had a look at it and we thought, wow, that is incredible. Look at the way that it generates this language. Look what it does. And for many of us, this was our first proper experience of working with AI and actually having an interactive experience with AI. So it was a world first for many of us. And for Andy, it was probably not a world first. He's been involved in this technology for 25 years. So for us, we just kind of started catching up at that point. However, not everybody's impressed. So my friend Tom Nash, he tweeted this yesterday. ChatGPT is like a Tinder date that has an amazing profile at first glance, looks and sounds great, but 10 minutes into the date, all of a sudden starts talking about how the government is making frogs gay by poisoning the water. And I laughed at that and I thought, isn't that funny? However, while it's funny, I totally disagree with the premise. See, here's the thing. When it comes to technology, there are hard problems and then there are incremental jumps. So if we think back to 2007, where Steve Jobs stood on that stage and showed us an iPhone for the very first time, what happened in that moment is he had solved a hard problem. He and his team had essentially created a supercomputer that could fit in your pocket, and it could do all sorts of things. It had a phone, it had internet connection, and it had an app store, and it got rid of the keyboard. All of those things happened, and it all came together in that moment. But it wasn't actually all that impressive. If we think back to the very first iPhone, that tiny little camera there was only a 2-megapixel camera, right? So it wasn't very good for anything other than a small screen. And inside this phone was a 4 or an 8 gigabyte hard drive. So a fairly small little hard drive happened. But the hard problem had been solved. And what happened next was quite predictable. Anyone with a brain would have known that they were going to improve this thing every single year, and it was going to get better and better and better and better and better. And what would happen is that it would just make incremental jumps and incredible jumps. And once they had solved those hard problems, it was going to really improve. And here we are today, where our iPhone has a terabyte of hard drive and a 48 megapixel camera. You can take a photo with an iPhone that could be used up on a billboard. It's got software that makes the photography phenomenal. It's got multiple lenses. It's got 5G fast internet, right? It is in every way the full vision of the supercomputer. Now, what's happening with ChatGPT is you've seen version 1, and we're only about 2 or 3 months into this AI revolution as far as consumers are concerned. The hard problem has been solved. The very difficult thing's been done, which is to create this generative language chat process. And now we're going to see a massive wave go through the economy, this new innovation, this new landscape that we're in, where AI starts doing more and more for us, and it starts taking on more and more jobs that humans normally do. And it's incredible. We don't think about these things as happening so fast, but they do happen. The transformation, the change does happen. If I think back to when I was a kid or a teenager, I used to go to the music shop called Sanity in Australia, and lots of teenagers would get if you were really cool, you got a job at the music shop. And we don't have music shops anymore. And the geeky kids worked at the bookshop in the shopping center, and we don't really have many bookshops anymore. And all the other kids were checkout chicks, checkout guys at the grocery store. And now we do self-checkout, and technology kind of just keeps moving forward. But sometimes there's a technology that comes along that is really incredible, and it's going to have a profound impact. It's kind of like the impact that a steam engine might have, or a steam tractor might have had on the farming industry. And what we've been seeing over the last 20 or 30 years, we've been seeing some people leveraging technology to create and to earn money, and some people who have been running without technology and they've been falling behind. What's happened now with technology is that the technology has gone from giving a slight advantage, but AI is going to give us a massive advantage. It's going to be a huge advantage for those who know how to use it. In the last couple of months, I've had 3 distinctions around my AI journey, 3 things that stand out to me as big distinctions that are really important on this AI journey. And I want to share with you those before we get started with Andy. So distinction number 1 is that AI can be used for creating or consuming. And if we think about a technology like TikTok is using AI to force people to consume a lot more than they would normally consume. So I remember the first time I downloaded TikTok onto my phone, it was 7 o'clock at night. And by the time I glanced up from my screen and became conscious of how much scrolling I'd done, it was about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd been scrolling for about 2 to 3 hours. And the AI had actually figured out what content would be phenomenally interesting to me. And I looked at TikTok and I realized that what they're doing, millions of videos get uploaded every single day. And an AI looks at those videos and figures out in advance which ones are going to be very viral, which ones are going to keep people's attention. And then it learns more and more about you as the user, and it learns more about what people are engaging with. And it just gives you the best of the best of the best of the best. And it keeps you on screen for longer and longer and longer. If you don't know that that's happening, it's very easy for you to spend 2 or 3 hours a day on TikTok, and it just gets the better of your weaknesses, right? So that is an example of AI that is being used to hyper consume. But AI also has power to allow you to hyper create. So a lot of people are now using AI to help and support their team meetings, and to create more in a meeting than they ever used to, and to create more as a team than they ever used to. And the first distinction that I've got is that we absolutely have to be conscious and aware of when AI is making us consume more than we would, or whether AI is helping us to create more than what we would. Because the difference between people who succeed and people who fail, the people who succeed are creating something of value, and the ones who are failing are the ones who are over-consuming things that are out there, all right? And AI kind of turns up the volume on all of that. Distinction number 2 that I learned is content versus context. So AI is phenomenally powerful at creating content. In fact, the G in GPT is generative, means that it generates stuff. But what's interesting that I've noticed about AI is that it really needs context. And what humans are good at is providing the context. See, if you go to AI and just ask it a random question, it doesn't know much about what it is that you're trying to achieve or what you're trying to do. In fact, recently, Microsoft launched Bing AI, and it was giving all sorts of random, horrible, nasty advice. And that was because it didn't know the context. It would almost be like if you were walking down the street and someone just stopped you, put their hand on your shoulder and said, "Tell me everything you know about Napoleon Bonaparte." And you start, what on earth do you want to know about that for, right? I've got no context. I don't know anything about what you're up to, or what you want the information for, or why you want the information. So suddenly we're not on the same page. But AI is really, really great if you as a human know how to provide the context, and then it can help you with the content. It knows how, once you give it the context, it knows how to fill in the content bubble. And that's a really good partnership between AI and humans. The next thing is about vitality versus functionality. Vitality versus functionality. So I personally believe that the human work that we are meant to be doing is the work of vitality, not the work of functionality. If we think about something that's functional, it's something that knows how to perform a task, right? So humans have been trained to be functional. We know how to perform tasks, and we can do them reliably, and that's functionality. But actually, what we love to do is vitality. Vitality has two meanings. It means life force, and it means irreplaceable. So it's the work that is irreplaceable, and it's the work that breathes the life force into our day. And the purpose of technology is to elevate us from functionality, vitality. So if we think about something like the washing machine, the hand washing machine, where for many, many years, people did their washing by hand, and then we invented electronic washing machines. And rather than spending hours every day doing hand washing, we're free to go out and give TED Talks and stand on stages and share ideas and stories and do something of more vitality. And what I'm noticing is that there's a lot of functionality that can be done with AI, but the vitality is still the missing link. That's what your job is as a human. And I like to think about it as like a sous chef versus a chef. Sous chops up the ingredients, hands them all over to the chef, and the chef makes a beautiful dish with it. And if we can use AI to do the functionality while we get good at doing the vitality, that is where we get to become fully expressed, right? Have a great time with AI. So to give us a little bit more depth as to how we can use AI for business, I want to introduce you to Professor Andy Pardoe. Andy and I have been getting to know each other a bit better over the last couple of months. And he's got an extraordinary background in AI. So Andy has been on his AI journey for over 20 years. He is the professor of artificial intelligence at Warwick University, and he's the head of the deep tech division at Warwick University. He has worked on some really incredible projects, such as the artificial intelligence that reads license plates when you're speeding away. If ever you've had a recent ticket in the mail and it read your license plate, you can send a thank you letter to Andy for his role in getting you caught on that. But he's been working on all sorts of AI projects. So what I'd like to do is hand over to Andy, and what Andy can do for us today is start catching us up on our AI journey and start providing us with some ideas around how we can be using AI for business. Over to you, Andy. Please, please everyone give Andy a nice Zoom round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. It's great to be here and wonderful to meet with everyone. Let me just put my slides in full screen. So thank you very much. So I'm going to try and whistle through these slides as quickly as I can, but I'm trying to give you a bit of an overview and a flavor for sort of what AI can do. My profile, Dan, has kind of covered very well. So I'm a professor of AI. I chair the Deep Tech Innovation Centre at Warwick University, but I also run my own tech consultancy business. I've got another slide that sort of covers a little bit of what Wisdom Works does. I'm also in the middle of writing a book on this topic, so it's almost finished, and I'll be sort of publishing that in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. So one to look out for. So just in terms of my business, just to give you a little bit of context. So I describe my business as a triangle. So there's the consulting side, where I work with SME businesses all the way up to PLCs, helping them with their AI strategy, helping with sort of training and sort of getting their sort of company from the C-suite all the way down to sort of the guys, sort of the development teams, etc., sort of familiar and understanding AI so they can start to use the technology. We also help deliver, so for companies that maybe don't have the in-house sort of data science skills and machine learning skills, we can actually get them started by building the technology. On the ventures side, so I advise a number of startup businesses, both sort of seed all the way up to sort of series A, B, C. So fairly large startups as well, so provide advisory on both the technical and the business side, as well as fundraising. And there's a few other things that we do on the ventures side, more sort of corporate innovation, that kind of thing. And I've also got a bit of a conveyor belt where we're spinning out our own ideas and sort of getting those set up, and obviously all AI related. And as the core, we're building our own sort of what I'm calling a next generation AI platform to support all of those activities. So just a quick one on the agenda. So I'll give you a bit of an intro to AI and machine learning. We'll talk about some applications of AI in business, talk about how the consumers and AI are sort of the relationship is changing with them, and then sort of how you go about adopting AI and the sort of journey that you might take. Touch on some ethics and governance, and then sort of next steps, and we'll have questions sort of later on. So my first computer was a Commodore 64 many years ago, and what's interesting for me is the size of the image that you're seeing right now is double the amount of memory that the actual Commodore 64 actually had. So that just gives you a little bit of a flavor for how fast technology is moving on. And it's actually, many commentators talk about an exponential increase in how fast technology is moving. And the landscape is changing and constantly changing at the moment, and it's happening faster and faster than we've ever sort of seen before. And just to give you a little bit more context on that, oh, I don't seem to be able to move. Hang on, what's going on? My slides seem to have stopped. Oh no, what's going on? Seems to have frozen for me. Sorry, I don't know what's going on here. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Andy. Just exit your screen and
there we go. No, that's okay. I've got it. So one of the things I wanted to show is all the different companies that are working in the world of AI right now. And there are companies building core capabilities. Oh, sorry. But there are companies working in different industry sectors. So what you've got is a massive number of companies, hundreds and hundreds, even thousands, working to build certain AI capabilities across different areas. And that can be a challenge for people that are running a business, because there's so much out there. How do you decide what to pick and what to use? And it can be a real challenge to sort of actually decide what technologies that you want to sort of integrate in your business. And the lifespan, innovation, the speed of growth and the speed of change is happening so fast now. And again, companies are sort of getting to that sort of $1 billion valuation a lot quicker these days than ever before. And the thing that's fueling that is technology. And for many of these sort of more recent unicorns, it's AI-based technology that is really accelerating their growth. And it's just a staggering sort of transformation, if you like. And again, it's this exponential growth that we're seeing in the technology. And for all companies, it's about innovating or dying. And really, adopting AI is going to be that next round of innovation. So if you as a business owner are not looking to use these kind of technologies in your business, your competitors will be. And this is where companies fall by the wayside. So for both Blockbuster and Kodak, and there's many other examples, they were late to adopt the latest technology, and that really sort of put them into a very difficult situation. And the irony, actually, I've seen Blockbuster, there's a series on Netflix all about the last Blockbuster shop. So that's the sort of irony of what can happen to a business if you're not innovating. And there's digital disruption happening across all industries. This is a little map of where there's disruption happening in the sort of fintech space and finance space. It's the same happening in the retail space. Obviously, the success of Amazon has all been down to its AI recommendation system that it sort of built very early on in its life, and it used that to be able to recommend other products to you. That fundamental algorithm has transformed Amazon into the sort of global retailer that it is today. So just touching a little bit. So one of the challenges is understanding all the terms and definitions. So artificial intelligence effectively is the catch-all term for anything that we build that tries to emulate some level of intelligent decision-making or intelligent capability. There isn't a globally accepted definition of AI, and it depends what sort of what industry you work in and what sort of focus you have. But I think the term, the definition I've got here is a good sort of baseline, if you like. Machine learning is a subfield of AI and has been a huge focus over the last sort of 10 years, if you like. And that is really just everything that we will be talking about, and ChatGPT is an example of machine learning, and this is where it's using data to create an algorithm or a model that can create some predictive capability, essentially. Dan sort of said, you know, many of us have only just started to hear about AI, and with ChatGPT, it sort of all seemed to kick off December last year. But in actual fact, it's been a long road to get to where we are right now. So the term artificial intelligence was first coined in the 1950s, and there's been a long series of developments and sort of building out capability over that sort of last sort of 70 years, essentially. We've actually had what they call 2 AI winters as part of this, where the interest in the technology has waned because the capability has sort of got to a kind of a bottleneck or a sort of an impasse that we just weren't able to overcome. And then typically there's a step change, a new technique comes out, and then things sort of move forward again.
Andy, sorry, my mistake. I muted you. I muted everybody because someone's microphone was on, and that included you. Sorry about that.
No worries. Can you hear me now? All good.
Yes, we can. Sorry, if everyone can make sure that you are on mute. There was some background noise a minute ago.
No worries. Perfect. So just comparing the sort of 70 years of AI development to the timeline for electricity. So it took us really 100 years to sort of get the basic understanding of electricity, and the sort of timeline at the top sort of shows that. And then another 100 years to really master electricity. Now, because we're all seeing that technology is moving now at an exponential rate, I think it won't be 200 years for us to master artificial intelligence, but it's happening at a grand pace. But we still have an awful lot to do. So while the things like ChatGPT sort of is amazing at what you can do with this, there's still an awful lot that needs to be done, and I'll sort of talk about that. Well, in fact, I'll talk about it right now. And the key thing with this is artificial intelligence. There's many sort of what I would call pillars or capabilities of intelligence. So not just learning, there's understanding, knowledge representation, reasoning, etc., etc. We, at the moment, as an industry over the last 10 years, have pretty much been obsessed with learning and all of these other pillars of intelligence. While some people have been working on these, there just hasn't been enough focus. And why this is an issue, it's not that we can't build systems with just the learning, and ChatGPT is a great example of that. But to get us to the human level of intelligence, we're going to need all of these other capabilities, and that's where all of this comes really important for us. A lot of what we can do with AI and machine learning is about the data that we have. So most of these techniques are data-driven, and essentially a lot of the data will be what I'm calling sort of human perception. So whether that's speech and language, vision, or other senses. So the majority of what we see is in that sort of natural language or vision sort of areas and applications. But there's also other types of data. So things like doing basic analytics on sensors from machinery, or log files for systems, all sorts of additional data that you can analyze and process in different ways. And then, of course, on the right-hand side of this, there's the sort of genetic or generative algorithms, I should say, that are really sort of creating things. And that's been a fairly new area, but obviously we'll talk more about that in a little while. Just running through, so machine learning, there are many different techniques. This is a sort of mind map I did a while ago, just to sort of highlight all the different technologies and techniques you can use with machine learning. A lot of the techniques and the sort of the models behind ChatGPT and many of the others are what are called deep learning, and that simply means there's many layers of neurons. So deep learning and neural networks essentially try to replicate in a very simplistic form the neurons in the human mind. We've got a very basic model of that we use for neural networks and deep learning. Deep learning is where you've got thousands, if not millions, of neurons in very complicated architectures that allow that sort of model to learn very complicated things, essentially. But there's many different techniques, and part of the skill of figuring out how to use machine learning, it's all about how you match the right type of machine learning to the right type of problem. And that's where the skill of a sort of a practitioner in machine learning will come into the forefront and sort of be able to pick the right technique. There are other ways to slice and dice all of those different techniques. So there's different types of learning approaches. So these are the boxes in green here. So there's what's called supervised learning, which is where you take a data set and you actually label that data set to tell it what to classify. So you might have images of cats and dogs, and you would label each image to say this is a cat, this is a dog. It can then learn the differences between those images, and then when you present an unseen image of an animal, it will then try and classify that as either a cat or a dog. So that's the supervised learning approach. Unsupervised would be the similar sort of thing, but you're not giving it any guidance as to whether that image is a cat or a dog when it's learning. So all it can do is cluster those images and say, we think all of these images are similar, and we would then interpret that and say, oh, they all look like cats. So that cluster is a cat, and this other cluster is a dog. But it might sort of find two other clusters where you'd have cats that look like dogs and dogs that look like cats, as an example, right? So that would be a slightly different approach to the learning. Semi-supervised is kind of what it suggests. It's where you'd have some data that is labeled. So you'd have lots of images of dogs and cats. Some of them you would have a label to say it's a dog or cat, and other images you wouldn't. Reinforcement learning is a fairly new area. And this is, again, it's inspired in some ways how humans learn. So it's based on essentially getting a reward for getting something right. So the company DeepMind, which has been bought and owned by Google for many years now, is a big user of reinforcement learning, and they use that to train an algorithm to play certain games. And there's some interesting videos of it playing different Atari games, and it used reinforcement learning based off the score. So as it increased the score, it realized what it was doing to get a better score was working, so it would do more of the same. And where it was not getting a great score, it would say, well, that approach doesn't work. So those are the kind of high-level different approaches to machine learning. Now, what that all gives us is different analytical capabilities. And this is a sort of Gartner sort of diagram that shows the different complexities of analytics that you can do. So the ones at the bottom, the sort of the hindsight and the oversight, are fairly simple and may not even need machine learning an AI to deliver those capabilities, but as you sort of move up the complexity, you're starting to use machine learning to sort of create predictive algorithms and capabilities. And fundamentally, what this allows you to do is to answer different questions about your business. So this might be about your marketing approach or your sales sort of process. You can ask all of these questions on different aspects of your business and use these technologies to help you essentially squeeze out insights from the data that you have in your business. And ultimately, that's what all of these technologies are trying to do. It's really trying to get a lot more knowledge and information out of the data that you have. So if you think about it that way, it will hopefully sort of highlight where there's opportunities in your own businesses. The other area that's becoming quite popular is sort of simulations and what's called digital twin. And this can be used in lots of different ways. So for example, your business might have a manufacturing process, and you want to plan next month's schedule of work. And rather than just trying something and see if it works, you could use a digital twin of your manufacturing process and run experiments, basically, try different things to see how that affects the output or the ability for your manufacturing process to create the right products at the right time. So these digital twins are actually very useful to sort of run different scenarios and allow you to experiment. So you might change something in the process. You might sort of say, well, if we put an extra person on this process, we can do twice as many in that bit. How does that affect the overall performance of the manufacturing? And so this technique is used a lot to sort of optimize those kind of real life processes. It can be used to model whole cities as well. So sort of looking at how the different capabilities within a city can affect the overall efficiency of that city. So there's examples of this being used to model existing and sort of new cities, when they're being planned out, etc. Simulations are used an awful lot, and for, you might have heard about sort of self-driving cars. So a lot of the technology being developed for self-driving cars, they've actually used simulation software to train the algorithm. So it's essentially having a 3D virtual world where you've got AI agents driving these cars in these simulated environments. And then you can test different algorithms and see how they perform without the risk of physically crashing a car, essentially. So this sort of way of running experiments in a simulated environment using AI is a really powerful capability. And, simulating whether it's manufacturing processes or sort of self-driving cars, there's lots of ways that you can leverage this type of capability to help improve your processes or improve your understanding of how all the levers that you can pull in your process can alter the outcomes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where you can use AI now. So the interesting thing, it's both good and bad, right? And there's a lot of this with AI, unfortunately. You can use artificial intelligence in every part of your business. And so the first part of this is what I'm calling the sort of front office. So this is everything from your marketing activities, your sales, all the way through to how you service your customers and provide customer support. Different AI techniques and technologies can help you streamline those processes, deliver extra capability. So it could be a chatbot, it could be ChatGPT to create some marketing and output that you want to use to attract customers. All sorts of techniques and technologies you can use from the front office. And this is really about improving customer experience and also increasing revenue sort of capabilities. So you might use a predictive algorithm as an example to see which of your customers you should try and upsell or cross-sell another product to. And you can use the machine learning to sort of look at what you've done before and see what worked and what didn't. Bigger firms use this to determine which customers we should communicate using which channel. Is it email best for one customer, but a text message is better for another? So there's all sorts of things you can do with these technologies from that sort of customer engagement. The next side of this is the back office. So this is all your sort of internal processes and operations. So everything from just how you're managing the day-to-day operations of the business. I've talked about the manufacturing a little bit, so there's lots of things you can do there. Things like predictive maintenance as well. So if you've got machinery, sort of using AI to help you predict when that piece of machinery might need a service, so that you can sort of service it before the machine fails rather than afterwards. So that's reducing the impact of that because you can plan that better. Lots you can do in the finance and legal space as well, and HR as well. So lots of examples of how you can use AI and machine learning in these different areas. And this is often about reducing cost and increasing operational efficiency and accuracy. And then the third area that often gets forgotten about is the bit in the middle, or at least I'm showing it in the middle. But this is about how you can create new products and services empowered by AI. And it may not be a new service, but it may be that you're using AI to augment and improve your current service and product. And this is a really key area of where you can use AI to create those product innovations. And I think that's a really powerful area that is also worth thinking about as well when you look at your own business. The other good and bad thing about AI is you can use it in any industry as well. And what I've found through working with different clients in different industries are adopting the technology at different pace and at sort of some are more mature than others. So financial services, they've been looking to adopt AI and machine learning for probably 4 or 5 years already, and sort of are making, you know, great advances in that. Health and medical. So before the pandemic, AI and machine learning was used a little bit in that area, but it was never really talked about, and it wasn't that sort of widespread. Whereas with the pandemic, there just became all of these different use cases for using the technology, and I've got 1 or 2 examples of that later on. So the pandemic actually really increased the digital transformation of the healthcare system using AI and machine learning. Manufacturing, I've mentioned, is maybe slightly less mature in its adoption, but I think this is an area where we'll start to see more use of the technologies, you know, over the next year or 2. Retail as well. I mean, Amazon is a bit of a black swan, if you like. Many retail firms are maybe not as well advanced in their adoption of these technologies. So it's an interesting mix there. So maybe your industry isn't on this list, but I can guarantee you that you can use the technologies in your business for sure, because many of going back to the previous slide, every business has the same kind of roles and functions, and we know that the technology can be used across all of those different areas. Just some interesting examples for you. So I worked in the banking sector for quite some time, and there's actually a few horror stories where the senior staff would joke about, you know, this time next year you'll all be replaced by robots. Simply not true, and simply not the case. The reality is, and Dan sort of alluded to this in his early slides, AI and machine learning is augmenting what we do. it's going to change a lot of our jobs, and it's going to produce us tools and capabilities that we can use to make our day-to-day jobs more efficient, more effective. And I use the term automate the mundane. So what we're really trying to do is automate those low-value tasks that need to be done, can be quite repetitive, but potentially individually don't add a huge amount of value to what you're doing. This will allow you to use your human intelligence to do the high-value things that are more complicated, more creative, and it frees you up to spend more time on doing those things in actual fact. So it's a really, most people should see the advent of all of these AI tools augmenting your day-to-day and helping you to be more efficient and more effective. A few years ago, a VC firm mentioned that they were using machine learning to make investment decisions. So they were actually analyzing the data of startup companies and using that as a decision point as to whether to invest in those startups. So they were using both financial and non-financial data in order to sort of crunch the numbers and predict which startups would more likely be successful. So that's a great example. And the company announced that they have got an AI agent on the investment board, helping them to make those decisions. So that's a really interesting example of where the data is really sort of helping them. I've talked about sort of examples that are helping the healthcare industry. So with the pandemic, video analytics was actually helping to identify whether staff members were wearing all the PPE equipment. So the image on the bottom right is an example of a technology that was literally sort of flagging and alerting if someone wasn't wearing the correct protective equipment, essentially. The whole area of image and video analytics for machine learning has really advanced over the last few years. And there's actually an annual test where there's thousands of images, and AI a few years ago performed better than your average human, whatever an average human is, in terms of recognizing what was in an image. And that is an example where, for a very narrow application, AI and machine learning is performing better than humans. And we're starting to see more and more of these examples. And I see this as a real sort of pivot point in our human history, that we're building machines that can do things better than humans. I think that's quite an important thing to highlight, essentially. Generative AI has been around for a few years. I used a tool a few years ago to just create a random image that I then used on the backdrop of my thumbnail for my podcast, as an example, right? So, but it's improved tremendously over the last couple of years, and we can sort of touch on that a little bit more. But certainly this area of creativity and using machine learning and AI to generate things for us is immense and really gone on leaps and bounds. There's an interesting one here that using generative algorithms to design new products. So this is an example of different frames of a bicycle, as an example. I'm not too sure any of these or all of these would be good examples that we'd want to actually build, but the principle is there, that it's sort of thinking about other ideas. It's coming up with stimulating creativity and helping you to come up with ideas that could then, a human designer could then, oh, that's not a bad idea, let's see what we can do with that, essentially. So again, it's helping starting that process. It may not be creating the final product yet, but watch this space. I wouldn't believe that in the next couple of years we'll again get to the point where these generative algorithms are creating designs that humans just would be like, wow, that's amazing. Why didn't we think of that? And, you know, for the specific requirements, it's better than anything that we could do. Of course, we've all been talking about OpenAI and ChatGPT over the last couple of months. It's what I've called a new era of computing, and I'm calling it prompting, because what this is demonstrating is that we can now ask a computer to do something for us, and it goes off and does it. And, you know, this is doing this in the sort of natural language space, but I think this is going to continue and continue over the next couple of years. And even to create computer programs for us. I was actually at a talk yesterday with a bunch of technologists, and I was saying, in the future, you're not going to be writing computer programs line by line. You're just going to be talking to the computer and asking it to create you a new program that does X, Y, or Z, and it will create it immediately for you. I've kind of, it's interesting that Dan shared some imagery on the mobile phones, because I've used the same analogy. So the first version of ChatGPT is very much like the very, very first mobile phone. And you think about that sort of massive phone with a huge power pack that you had to lug around with you compared to where mobile phones are now. And that advancement has, you know, only taken, you know, 10, 15 years or so. I think over the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see some amazing advances in this sort of area of prompting. So where we're just sort of asking a computer to do something for us, it will go away and do that for us. And I think it's really telling that the big tech firms, especially the ones around search, Microsoft and Google in particular, have been trying to integrate this capability and essentially innovating their search capability. So I talked about this as Search 2.0, but it's really moving search on, and to Dan's point, adding context into search and into these kind of capabilities, so you can actually interact and have a conversation with the search engine rather than just typing a few words and pressing go kind of thing. So it's taking us to a whole new era of how we're going to interact with technology. Now, the reality is that consumers' expectations are changing because of this. And I think it's really important for us to think about this from our own business perspective. So, of course, there's loads of AI in our mobile phones. There's the predictive text. There's the facial recognition to unlock many of the phones. There's many of the apps that you've installed on your phone will have machine learning embedded within them. And I think this is the interesting thing, that it's so easy to use these technologies now. Many people won't even know they're using machine learning. They just sort of see it being part of the applications they're using. All of the social media platforms, Dan mentioned TikTok, they all use these sort of algorithms to determine which videos, which piece of content to recommend to you, because they want you to continue to consume as much as possible. So they are trying to optimize what they give you so that you interact for longer and longer, and you spend more time liking posts and liking things. It's all about that consumption, and I think Dan was spot on when he talked about that earlier. We're starting to get these devices in our homes as well, and starting to interact with them. We'll see much more of this, and you know, the capability of these devices will start to improve as well over time. The wearables, so you know, some of you may be wearing a smart watch, and that's sort of measuring your vital stats and your sleep patterns and all of this kind of thing. We're just creating more and more data that can be used to analyze us and to profile us and to understand us better. All of this data is available to help essentially create more customized and personalized services to consumers. And that's essentially what consumers are looking for. They don't want a generic service anymore. They want to know that you as a business have personalized and customized your products and services just to them. And I think we're going to see much more of this over the coming years, where all of this will be driven by the data that consumers will be sharing with you and your businesses, so that you can provide a more customized and personalized experience to them. I talked about augmented or using AI to augment the workforce. This is an example from one company that provides various sort of chatbot technologies, and they're using it to sort of help across many different areas, both from the front office and the back office area, and they're seeing more engagement to augment the workforce. And again, it's all about automating the mundane and sort of getting those sort of real simple tasks off the human workforce and freeing them up to do more interesting and more challenging work, essentially. Going to touch a little bit on the strategy. So this is all about the AI strategy. So there are many different aspects to building out a really good AI strategy to make sure that you can adopt the technology properly in your business. So it's everything from the very beginning, just identifying the business need. And so going back to that value chain diagram I showed earlier, where you've got sort of front office areas where you can apply the technology, back office areas, and then maybe innovating your own products and services to your customers. You can use AI across all of those things, but you need to understand what's most important to you and your business, because essentially you're going to want to create an AI roadmap, which will then prioritize all of those potential use cases and figure out which ones are going to give the best value to your business. And then you need to make sure you've got the right data in place, you've got the underlying technology to support building these sort of models and algorithms. Make sure you've got the right skills and talent within your firm, or that you look to partner to sort of bring that in. You definitely need a culture of innovation. And the reason I say this is that building machine learning is very experimental. There's lots of trial and error. There's lots of experimentation. So you have to be prepared to try and fail and then try again approach. And for some firms, large and small, that culture can be difficult to reconcile sometimes. There's also a whole bunch of governance and AI ethics that you may want to consider as part of integrating AI into your business. Again, it may depend on your industry. It may depend where you're using the technology, but you want to make sure you're not exposing yourself to any sort of operational or reputational risks with deploying these technologies. And then the AI readiness is just about making sure any of the gaps that you've identified in any of these areas that you're able to sort of mitigate and sort of help sort of deal with those challenges before you start. And then figure out what partners and stakeholders that you can sort of get involved along the journey as well. And that, that could be both internal and external. And there are many different ways that you can start your AI innovation using different types of partners as well. I talk about this as a sort of a roadmap or a journey as well. So again, this applies regardless really of your size of company, but really you start out with a need and a vision, you'll start to innovate. And then once you start to experiment and see what can be possible with these technologies, You'll then start to scale that up and to roll that out across your firm. And then eventually you'll start to think about using AI in everything that you do. So every time you do create a new process or you create a new product, you'll be thinking to yourself, where can I use these technologies to help improve those capabilities, and what can we do to improve our ability to support our customers, make things better, and improve the experience. So you do often need to take what's called an innovation funnel approach. So rather than just picking one use case and see if you can take that all the way through, you may want to pick a handful and try one or two and see where they go. Some use cases might fail, and they might fail for very valid reasons. So it may be you just don't have enough or the right data to make that particular machine learning algorithm work. But what you've done, you've learned a lot along the way. So it may just be a learning experience for you that you can then apply to the next use case, and maybe that one will be very successful. And it may be the first use case, you just needed a bit more data, or you didn't have a particular piece of data that if you brought that in, you could make that particular machine learning algorithm work. So you need to sort of take a very sort of innovation funnel approach to this. There are other considerations I've briefly mentioned about the governance, and again, depending on your size of business, you may have different approaches to this, but there's a lot of talk about, how do you make sure that the algorithm's working properly once you've deployed it, and making sure that you're monitoring things properly. So there's a whole range of things around this that you might need to sort of think about. And then the ethics side, there's all sorts of areas to be considered about this. There's things like decision transparency and explainability. So if you're in a regulated industry and you're using an algorithm to make a decision on whether someone should get a bank loan or a mortgage, you need to be able to explain why the algorithm said no, essentially, because an applicant might challenge that decision. So there's all sorts of things. Data naturally has biases in it, so you need to be aware when you're training a machine learning algorithm. You need to be aware of those biases and take steps to reduce those biases so that you're creating a model that's fair to everyone, essentially. Whole range of things to be considered. I won't go through them all, but something just to be aware of. One of the techniques to sort of help with this is what's called human in the loop. So you might use a machine learning algorithm to sort of guide you on decisions or to sort of inform you on things, but you will always want a human to make that final decision. It might sort of take that recommendation, or it might want to sort of query that and come up with a different decision, but having that human in the loop can be really helpful. So next step, so how do you get started? Well, it can be very easy. So really it can be just about thinking about where you want to use the technology in your business, and then prioritizing those use cases, and then really making sure you've got the right data, and then just start building algorithms. Now, for some use cases, or for many use cases, you don't need to build machine learning from scratch. There are many off-the-shelf algorithms, and ChatGPT is a great example of a pre-built algorithm that we're all using for lots of different use cases now. So OpenAI have invested millions of dollars to train that algorithm up, and now they're making that available for us. And there's lots of examples where you can, for different applications, you'll be able to use a pre-trained algorithm to sort of solve your particular use case. So it's not true that you'll have to start from scratch and build a machine learning model from the ground up. So many of these things will be available, and it may just be about selecting the right pre-trained algorithm and then sort of testing it on your own data. and then run it in parallel. So don't necessarily replace your existing process, but just sort of test this new capability side by side and see how it performs. And then at some stage, you may find that actually this is better than our current process. We want to flip ahead. I've had examples when I was working in the bank where the business users, because they were quite wary about machine learning, they wanted to run the process in parallel for 6 months. So we literally ran side by side the machine learning algorithm versus the manual process. And it got to the point where it was not only better than what they were doing as a sort of production process, they started to use the algorithm to train their junior staff, because it was helping the junior staff to realize where they were going wrong with decisions. So it moved from that just being used as a almost a recommendation engine to actually being used as a training tool. And I think that's a really interesting sort of example of where the outcome of the machine learning algorithm can change and be used in different ways. So just a bit of plug for my business. So Wisdom Works. So we provide a full range of tech consultancy services. There's a free knowledge tool. So if you go to inform.ai, there's lots of guides and insights on there as well. I mentioned the ebook, and of course, there's a wonderful AI strategy scorecard that you're very welcome to use as well. So that will help you understand where you currently are in your adoption journey of AI, and sort of highlighting some areas that you might want to look at. And I think that's it from me. So that's hopefully given us enough time.
Thank you very much, Andy, for giving us a bit of a roadmap and sharing 20 years worth of knowledge around AI in a short set of slides. Stick around because we're going to have some Q&A, Andy, and the big question on everyone's lips is, what do we teach our children at school to make sure that they still have jobs? So consider that one as coming up. Now, before we get to Q&A, I've got something really special that I want to share with you, which is a little bit about what we've done with AI to plug it into Score. And what we've really been doing over the last couple of months or couple of weeks is working behind the scenes to put AI into our system. So for those of you who have not used Score is all about creating online scorecards, quizzes, and surveys that collect lots of data, and that data can be used to generate high converting leads. So essentially, we've got lots of nice templates where you can set up a scorecard, and a scorecard, our system of setting up a scorecard has 4 things. It has a landing page, beautiful landing page that gets people to want to fill in the scorecard. It's then got a questionnaire where it asks somewhere like 10 to 20 questions, or sometimes a bit more, so that people are answering some questions. It takes those questions, uses a point system, and then gives dynamic results. And those results change based upon how you answer the questions. And then it's got promotional tools and follow-up insights about the data that you collect. So once you've got all of this data coming in, you get all this really pretty data so that you can see how people answer your questions, and you can see all the leads and all of that sort of stuff. Now, this system's been really, really great. It worked so well for us, and we rolled out several different scorecards, generated like 90,000 leads and millions worth of sales. And then lots of other really amazing people started using ScoreApp, some famous people, some people who have just got normal businesses, and it's been going really well. However, one of the hardest things about setting up a scorecard is that you've got to create some content. You've got to write all the content, and sometimes that takes a lot of time, right, if you haven't already done the preparation. So this is a great opportunity for OpenAI and GPT-3 to come in and do the work for you. And what we've been doing is building that so that it just does that as if by magic. And think about it a bit like this, right? So electricity came along, and there was this incredible new power, this electricity power, and we knew how to generate electricity, but then that electricity got plugged into all sorts of different devices, and those devices ran on electricity. So, you know, you can think about this lovely little blender here as being an application for electricity. So the electricity is the energy or the power, that travels across, and then it powers this thing called a blender. So what we want to think, we want you to do is think about AI as a new form of electricity, a new form of power. It's being generated by a big company, a multi-billion-dollar company that generates that AI, but it can actually plug into other people's little applications like ScoreApp. So to demo what we've been doing over at ScoreApp, I'd like to hand over to the CEO and co-founder, Stephen Oddy. And Stephen is going to share with us a demo of how an AI can do something that takes hours, if you're a human, in a matter of minutes. So Stephen, are you with us?
I am. Hello, everyone. So, yeah, good to see you. So this demo, I got back from the developers on Monday afternoon. They've been working on it for a couple of months. Literally beginning of this year, we kind of started to integrate with OpenAI. And yeah, so first look at it was on Monday. We made a few tweaks yesterday and this morning, and here we are. So there's definitely still a few weeks work to do on this before it will be in the hands of any customers. So certainly an early preview. So as Dan said,
Stephen, go through nice and slow. You just clicked the button, which was create a new scorecard. So I'll just go.
Yeah. So as Dan said, biggest challenge for our customers is just getting over that hurdle of setting up. Writing a landing page, writing questions, writing results. It's a bit like if anyone's created a website for their business or a microsite. For most people, getting that content down is the hardest bit, and that's a big part of kind of setting up your quiz. But up until this point, we've had templates and we throw lots of support in, and we help guide people through the process, but it can still take a considerable amount of time. Now what we've got, when you click Create Scorecard, we've got the two methods that you had previously, which is start from scratch, or pick a template. When you choose pick a template, we've got kind of 50, 60 templates in there, and they're great starting places, and you can just go in and edit and change anything, but they're the same 50, 60 templates every time you go in. And then this is our nice new shiny tool that we're working on right now. So if I click use the AI setup wizard, get a little bit of an intro about it and a bit of a disclaimer to say not our fault if it says something bad. And then you get started. So the first thing we ask you is what you're trying to do, what you're trying to create with this scorecard. So for the majority of our customers, it's generate new leads. Then we ask you how you want to structure your results. So these are the common formats on ScoreApp. So it's either you deliver like one overall score to somebody, or it might be that you deliver an outcome quiz. So you might say you're an introvert or a certain type of business. Or we break down multiple scores and multiple results and ask you questions against those things and give that feedback based on those scores. That's what I'm going to go for with this one. Now we just ask a few questions to get started. So how would you describe your business? So for this example, I'm going to do an SEO specialist. So SEO specialist. Now we ask you, how would you describe your target audience? And we've already gone to OpenAI at this point to kind of say, ask OpenAI, what would be example target audiences for an SEO specialist? So it's already starting to suggest stuff and like help you fill in this form. So I'll just go small businesses for this. And then the same again. What do you want to help your clients improve, achieve, or prevent using this scorecard? And we give some suggestions. So increase organic traffic, improve website rankings, prevent penalties. It's kind of like getting these, pretty spot on just from literally these two bits of information that I've typed in so far. What I'm actually going to do is go rank on page one. That's what I am going to help people achieve. Now it's time to pick a concept for the scorecard. Rank on page one, test your SEO knowledge. SEO quiz, are you ready to take the top spot? Small business SEO test, are you ready for page one? Let's try and get some more suggestions actually. Small business SEO showdown, take the challenge. Rank on page one, ready or not? Let's go for this one. So now, as I mentioned earlier, we chose the multiple scores. So now we're suggesting things that you can score people against. So this is where you just simply, add whatever it is that you want to score people against. So keywords, great thing to score people against. Content, competition. Let's see what else we've got. Page speed, that's a good one. Now I've got 4 things I want to score people against. Simple as that. Not really had to use my brain much so far. And now we're starting to suggest questions based on the keywords. So now, do you know the keywords your target audience is using to search for a business? Great question. Do you have a list of keywords that are related to your business? Have you researched your competitors' keywords? Have you optimized your website's content with keywords? Do you have a strategy for tracking keyword performance? These are all pretty great questions, right? And I'm just going to click next. They're my keyword questions. Now I get some questions about content. Does your website have a blog? Does your blog have fresh content regularly? You have content marketing strategy, you have keyword research in place. So, they're not all great. So we have the option to kind of say, no, not great, but they're pretty good starting places. I should point out on here as well,
if we don't like exactly, we can edit those questions too, can't we?
Yeah, exactly. So we've got kind of the pencil here. Yeah, and this is just the setup process as well. So obviously, once you've gone through this process, you go back into the usual builder within ScoreUp as if you started from scratch, and you can go in and add and edit anything. It's really just kind of like getting rid of that blank piece of paper kind of thing. Competition category. Do you know who your top competitors are? Do you know what keywords competitors are ranking for? Do you know the backlinks competitors have acquired? Like, these are spot on questions. Social media competitors. All right, final category, page speed category questions. Are you leveraging browser caching for your website? Have you minified your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files? Are you using CDN? Is your website like, these are all the exact questions an SEO specialist would ask you. Okay, so we've picked all our options, we've picked our categories, picked our questions. All we have to do is hit create now, and off it goes in the background, and it starts creating. And
I don't know if you noticed that, but it just also said that it's written about 2,000 words and it's saved about 30 hours worth of writing. So it's gone and done all that in about a minute. So let's have a look at the scorecard it's created.
Yeah, so let's just jump straight in, see what it's created. So here's the landing page. Get ready to rank on page 1. Answer 15 questions and we'll send you a personalized report. Take our quiz to find out if you're ready to rank on page 1. We'll evaluate your website keywords, content, competition, and page speed, and provide you with valuable feedback that will help you to get the best rankings possible. Take the scorecard. Okay. So these are all the questions we picked, right? So I'll fly through these. I need to read those out again. And then we get to the results page. Okay, so I kind of scored average on most things and 0% on other things. Like, thanks for taking the quiz. Congratulations on completing the quiz. Your results will provide you with an understanding of your website's current performance and offer advice on how to make improvements to rank on page 1. Read through your full results below to make sure you're taking full advantage of every opportunity to increase your visibility online. So then you can see, here we scored 0% on competition. Your website is a disadvantage compared to your competitors. Make sure to analyze your competitors' websites and identify any opportunities for improvement. Also consider taking advantage of any backlinks or other SEO tactics. And then here, you've made a good start with optimizing your website for keywords. It's literally written different content for each of these sections, depending on how you scored.
So just to be really clear, if you're not familiar with the system, that dynamic content, you have to write different content for each category that people score in. The AI just did all of that in a matter of seconds. It did the low score, the medium score, the high score, and it wrote different content depending on how people scored. Incredible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, this is in the editor now. You can see you've got all of the low scores in there. I can flick through to the medium. That's the medium. It's got the content. That's the high content. And it's all, an absolutely great starting place. I'm kind of been saying it gets you to about 80%, but, this feels like 95% done to me. We've even kind of written the result email as well. So congratulations, you've taken the first step to improving search engine rankings. Click here to view your results. So yeah, super impressive. And this is like, our version 1. And, we started, like I say, at the beginning of the year. And I should say as well, like, we have done this with just our existing team, our existing developers, no real AI specialists. This is the beauty of what OpenAI have released and what they've given the API, opened the API up to us. We just put a good developer on it that's been able to do that integration. And we just had to kind of like work hard on the prompts. But that is kind of just a bit of a kind of a common sense kind of thing. And that's what we've been able to produce in just a few weeks.
Paul Dunn, can I please hear your reaction? Can I get a Paul Dunn reaction, please?
Daniel, you've read it on the chat, right? I mean, some people are going, "Oh, wow," and that is just amazing. I was trying to figure out how many weeks we put into creating our scorecard here at B1G1, and it's a long time. And to see that is like, oh my gosh! So super good job, Dan, as always. Well done.
It's
Just
incredible.
amazing.
And I just want to say hats off to Stephen and his team of developers.
Yes,
yes.
Yes.
I just want to also mention, it's important to mention that a lot of our developers are actually in Western Ukraine and have spent the last 12 months with their lives turned upside down. And even still, they are incredibly committed and dedicated to what we're doing, and have been an amazing team. And the camaraderie and the enjoyment that we've had working together over the last 12 months under incredible circumstances has been nothing short of amazing. So hats off to the team who have done that. Now, for those of you, you're wondering what comes next. So we've now got the building of the scorecards happening. What happens is you will launch the scorecard. You'll get people taking the scorecard, and then more magic starts to kick in. So what you'll start to see is data coming in where you'll have access to how people are answering your questions. This is just one question you might ask, and you'll have like 31% of people said yes and 69% of people said no. And you click on that piece of data and hit the little AI button down the bottom, and ta-da, it's going to write a press release for you, and it's going to create some information about that data that you can then send out to your list, or that you can use on social media, or you can send to the New York Times. And then on top of that, you're going to say, well, hey, I want a weekly content marketing plan. And you're going to get an email and it says, hey there, Daniel, you've got lots to talk about this week. We've prepared tweets and posts and press releases for you to use. And it's going to be creating all of this incredible content for you that you'll be able to use. So for everything from creating the scorecard through to the content marketing strategy is all going to be, we're going to be doing the heavy lifting for you. Now, going back years ago, this strategy, we invested a lot into this, but it generated 90,000 leads and millions worth of sales. Once we got it right, it hardly changed and always continued to give us great leads every single week. So I want you to know that all of these great, amazing tools are coming in the coming weeks and months. We're going to be rolling out with groups of, say, 50 to 100 in the beta group, and then we'll expand it out to the wider community and to the wider audience. The best way to get access is to be a Score app user. So if you haven't done so already, you can start a free trial. And with a free trial, if you will post in the chat a link for you to start your free trial. And then you can actually have a go at what it's like to build a scorecard using the existing tools. And then as soon as it's ready, we're going to have access to advanced tools that you can leverage the AI. And you've seen, this is what we've been able to create since January. So, expect exciting things to come in the year ahead. Scoreup's going to do all of this for you for around £29 a month if you're a small business, £89 a month if you're a bit bigger business. The strategy has been mapped out in the book Scorecard Marketing. As part of your free trial, you'll get the copy of the book. The book is being updated with AI content in the book as well. You'll get to be part of our community who share strategies as to how to use scorecards to grow their businesses. And also, as part of your free trial, we'd like to invite you to an event called Set Up and Score, where Lee will actually be taking you through all the nuances of how to do a really successful scorecard marketing campaign. So Lee is just phenomenal. There's not a day that doesn't go past, not a day goes past without someone saying that Lee massively helped their business with their scorecard marketing campaign. So all of that's coming. And hopefully we get to see you transform your business with lots and lots of leads that was created with AI tools and AI systems. So let me know in the chat, what do you think of that? What do you think of this this way of doing things? And hopefully this is one of the first times you've seen a business plugging AI directly into the back of the portal. And you can definitely reach out to us and talk to us about what you've seen. And you can get involved that way. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to open up for some questions, and you can direct questions to myself, to Steve, or to Andy, and you can talk to us about any questions that you've got. So feel free to put up your digital hand or put some questions into the chat. Andy, I'm going to throw it to you with question number one. It was a very common question that was in the chat, which is, if you've got children, what do you teach your children to focus on in order for them to jump the curve and make sure that they still have an exciting future ahead? They're learning the right things. What do you think are some of the things that we should be learning or teaching our children?
It's a great question. So first of all, congratulations to you and the team, because it's a great example of where you've taken your product and you've innovated it using the power of AI. So that's the middle bit of the value chain that I showed earlier. So it's a great example of that. So well done to you and the team. So for me, I think what's really going to be more and more important for children is to get them excited by technology, and not just using it, but understanding it, because we are all impacted more and more with technology. And I think it's increasingly important that we understand how to use technology, both for our personal lives and for our work environment. So that would be the first bit of advice. The second bit of advice is develop that sort of innovative and creative thinking as well, because that's going to be one of the last things that will be taken over by AI. The third bit of advice, which I thought was quite maybe slightly funny, is that the job of a plumber is very difficult to automate. So maybe that's a skill that might sort of live longer than many others as well. So there's sort of three bits of advice there for you.
If you own a Ferrari dealership, start reaching out to plumbers and boiler repair people, because that is the new rich.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Francine, let's hear a question from you. Feel free to unmute.
Hello, thank you very much. Remarkable solution again. Bravo for Team Dent. My question is, I have two questions actually. The first one, Andy talked about pre-trained algorithm. Where do we find those pre-trained algorithm and to integrate that into what we want to do? And my second question, which is
Francine, I'm going to be disciplined. I'm just going to go one question each.
Okay,
so Andy, where do we get our hands on pre-trained algorithms?
Yeah, it's a great question. So most of the cloud platforms, so if you're using any of the cloud platform technologies, they will all have a suite of pre-trained algorithms that you can use. So that would be the easiest way to sort of get your hands on them. There are other sources where you can sort of find open source pre-trained algorithms, but the easiest one for most of you is just what's available or made available from the cloud platforms that are all integrating all these different types of AI capabilities into their platforms.
Very good. Sam, let's hear from you.
First of all, thank you very much for a really, really great and insightful presentation. I kind of fell down the ChatGPT rabbit hole on Friday. Friday was the first time I'd heard about it, started looking into it, started reading lots of articles. I'm involved in the publishing industry, and I'm seeing a lot of articles being written about the fact that there are loads and loads of books being published on Amazon that are listing ChatGPT as a co-author. No doubt that for every one that actually lists it, there's probably dozens more that don't list it. Andy and Daniel, both as authors and published authors, what's your opinion on the ethics around that of publishing and selling content that you didn't write?
So it's very interesting, right? And actually the book on AI strategy, I used ChatGPT to create a poem on AI, but I actually mention at the bottom written by ChatGPT and everyone that contributed to the training of it, because that's the interesting thing, right? So these algorithms have been used, everything that's publicly available on the internet as the corpus of training data. And there's an awful lot of ethical issues and legal issues that have just not yet been prized open. So there's, you can ask ChatGPT to write something in a style of someone. Is that in breach of their intellectual property, right? So it's a really difficult question to answer. And I think what you tend to find, the technology races ahead and the ethics and the legal frameworks are always lagging behind. So this is where it could get interesting. I mean, it's difficult to sort of close the lid on this now, but there could be lots of problems where we shouldn't be using it for certain use cases, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the Wild West at the moment. Everyone's using it for whatever they want, and no one really cares at this point, or they do, but it's difficult to control that and to sort of put a legal framework around that. So it's a great question, and I don't know what the answer is going to be on that, to be honest with you. What I would say is there's legal cases happening at the moment all about this. So there'll be some legal precedents that will then start to inform how these things can and can't be used.
Yeah, very similar to what I would have said as well, Sam. Great question. Mark, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Daniel. Fantastic information. And by the way, I'm on page 31 of the book, so good stuff so far. Now, how could a small team? I was the post interview where it suggested some information to the company, but I guess for a small firm on the sales and marketing end, and how could one use a scorecard and ChatGPT to make more efficient the sales process? Right now, we're doing a lot of one-on-one with client follow-ups. How I saw some suggested social media.
Yeah, the three ways that people tend to use Score App is to generate leads, which is really fast little scorecards, normally about 10 questions. And it's things like, are you ready to blank? Are you ready to run a marathon? Are you ready for your wedding day? Are you ready for hiring a new salesperson on your team, right? So these little are you ready quizzes are really powerful for generating fast little leads. The next way is for qualification. So people who already have audiences and they've got thousands of people who are already in their audience, whether it's on social media or listeners on podcasts or viewers on YouTube, they want to turn that audience into a qualified lead. And normally these are 20 to 50 question scorecards with multiple categories that allow you to then really hyper segment your list and qualify your leads. And then finally, people are using it with their existing clients to be able to quantify the results that the client gets. So once you sign up a client, you can get them to do a scorecard on day one and a scorecard 6 months later, and it gives you a quantification. So recently, a young guy called TJ, who was doing some work with a private school in Scandinavia, he got all the students to do a scorecard on day one of their intervention, understanding their hormones and their chemicals that drive their behavior. And then they did an intervention, and then they were able to actually see the improvements that were being made 3 months later and 6 months later. And the school that paid for this was completely blown away because they could really quantify how much improvement had been made. So they rolled out the program amongst a wider audience. So those sorts of things are happening very regularly, where people are using scorecards in those ways: leads, conversions, and quantifying client results. Paul, let's hear from you. And then we might just only have just two more, Noop and Catherine.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Andy. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely stunning, as always. Yeah, that question, by the way, Sam's question on IP issues of authorship. I actually asked that question to ChatGPT, and it answered, yeah, you've got to credit us with the work. So, and I had a little conversation with it, and it was absolutely standing its ground on that one. So it'll be after me if I, do anything wrong. So my question is about images, which are obviously very supportive of content and bring it to life, make it pop and all the rest of it. It's a very simple question. Maybe it's to you, Dan, is what's the best image creation AI machine?
Oh, look,
maybe Andy. I mean,
I was going to say, I've been using DALL-E and I've been using a couple of the other ones. But Andy, when you think about image generation, which do you find are the best?
I've just
Stable
posted
Diffusion.
I've just posted 3 that I have on a slide I didn't get to show you, but those are 3 that are quite commonly used. There are a number of them out there, and what's happened with the image generation is you can actually kind of interact and say, I want an image that shows X, Y, Z, and it creates the image. So that's been a big recent development in this. Whereas the image that I shared on my slides, you kind of had to use a couple of images as a baseline and say, create something similar to this. And it would sort of use those 2 images to sort of create a sort of hybrid of the 2, as it were. So the technology's moved on quite a lot, although still work to be done, I think, in that area as well. But I think, it's really interesting that both of those areas are sort of moving quite fast at the moment.
Incredible, right? And there are actually Instagram influencers already that have millions of followers. This one in particular, Michaela, has 2.8 million followers. She doesn't actually exist. She is an Instagram influencer who is just generative. So she's been generated. Her and all of her friends get up to all sorts of fun things, but she's not real. So she has 2.8 million followers following her actual unreal life journey. So it's a brave new world out there. Noop, let's hear from you. And then we'll have Judith, and that will be the final question. We will need to wrap up.
Thanks so much, Dan and Andy. I mean, mind blown again, as always. And congratulations on the Score app innovation. Andy, my question is around what you said earlier around new product and services development versus skill set, which you also alluded to in terms of, all of this is really fast moving. And if we want to develop tools and applications for our own businesses, as Dan has done, where do we start, and who do we turn to? I know this is like probably the $1 million question everyone's got on their minds.
So I mean, this is what my business does is advise businesses on how to adopt the technologies. But I mean, the thing, I mean, I've worked with very big clients and very small clients, and the requirements are different but similar, right? So the very big clients that I work with will want to build their own machine learning algorithms because they see that as a competitive advantage, having their own unique algorithm that's doing something very specific for them. Whereas I think a lot of smaller businesses, using an off-the-shelf capability is more than good enough. And, you know, as I showed in one of the early slides, there's lots of vendors out there, but it's almost too many to know who to pick. So again, you know, that's something I can support people with, to sort of try and match the requirements versus the capabilities, and whether that's a sort of a pre-trained algorithm that's in one of the cloud platforms, or whether that's working with a third-party vendor company, or you know, my team can build things bespoke as well. So it's a range of things, basically.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And you might have seen Andy's scorecard. So you can literally start with that, and that gives you an experience of a scorecard in action. So you can fill in his scorecard, and you will actually be popping up on his radar straight away. And it'll also give you an indication as to where to start as well. Judith, last question is for you, and then we're going to wrap up.
Brilliant. Thanks, Daniel. You amaze me every time you open your mouth, by the way. The question I've got is, with the AI incorporated into Score app, with so many people using it, how do we ensure that we are I know we'll make changes to some of the questions, but how do we know, if you're a coach or a trainer or whatever, that somebody else hasn't got something almost the same?
So just thinking, I just want to share on that because it's a great point. Thinking about something like YouTube channels or podcasts, there's something like 5 or 6 million podcasts that are out there now. There's 5 or 6 or more than that, 5 or 6 million at least YouTube channels. So when we think about these other ways of connecting with the market, there's millions and millions and millions of different channels that are available. When we think about even just being an author of a book, there's literally millions of authors out there that have written their book on their particular topic. So when we think about competition, you know, when we're looking at something like scorecard marketing and having an online assessment or an online survey or a quiz, there's only a very, very, very tiny percentage of businesses that are using this so far, right? So at the moment, there's less than 3,000 people who have a Score app account globally. So it's very, very early days for this type of marketing. So you're massively, by the fact that you're on this call, you're an early adopter. I'm hoping that we do get to 5 or 6 million people. Every YouTube channel needs a scorecard. Every podcast needs a scorecard associated. Every author needs a scorecard associated, but we're a long way from that happening. The more you change the prompts with AI, the more you make it your own. And I would always encourage you to make it your own. I want you to think about AI as like a sous chef, and you're the Michelin star chef, right? So imagine that the Michelin star chef's job is to create a dish that people go, wow, and they're like, love it, and it's amazing, and they want to photograph, and they want to say that it's delicious. That's the job of the Michelin star chef. But the Michelin star chef has something called a sous chef, or has someone called a sous chef who chops up all the ingredients and does the preparation and actually does quite a lot of the work behind the scenes, and allows the chef to come in and actually finish it off and create an amazing dish that's ready to go out on people's table. Now, what I don't want you to do with AI is I don't want you to get AI to do all the work. I want you to get AI to do 80% of the work, and you put all the finishing touches on. You win the Michelin star by putting those finishing touches on that make it yours and make it truly unique to you. And that's how you want to work with AI. You don't want to be so dependent upon it that it just does everything for you. You want it to do heavy lifting, and you do the finishing touches. You do the humanizing of its work. So think about another example would be a CEO of a publicly listed company who has an amazing executive assistant. The executive assistant is not there to run the company. Their job is not to replace the CEO. Their job is to leverage the CEO, so the CEO is doing the very most high value stuff that they can possibly do, and the executive assistant is supporting to elevate their value. So use the AI the same way an executive assistant would work with a CEO. You're still the CEO, and the AI is not there to replace you. It's there to elevate you. Great way to finish up. Great things to be thinking about. So thank you so much for joining us on this presentation and having a first look out of everyone in the world at what we're doing over at ScoreApp. And hopefully we get to see what you create using these tools in the coming weeks and months ahead. We look forward to seeing what you come up with. Go have fun with it, go be brave with it, and enjoy all of this new stuff this new world that we're living in. All the best. Thank you very much, Andy. Yes. Thanks, Steve. And thanks to all the team over at ScoreApp. Get yourself a free trial. If you want to email us, I gave you an email address about angel investing if you wanted to be an angel. Grab a copy of the book Scorecard Marketing. Take Andy's scorecard. All of those links are in the chat. Thank you so much. I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.